Thank you for taking some time for yourself before anything else. I want to point out something important. Right now, even though your mind often travels, you're actually here. And you don't have to make that happen. It's already happening. While you're listening to these words, you can notice that this moment is unfolding on its own. And the fact that you're noticing this at all is already a sign that part of you knows how to be present. Perfect. You've spent a long time thinking about what's already happened. That took energy. That took endurance. And as you sit here now, you can allow yourself to recognize that you're not doing that work in this exact moment. Perfect. Even noticing that difference between remembering and simply being here is something worth acknowledging. You don't need to stop thinking about the past, but right now you're allowed to rest from it. As you hear my voice, you may begin to notice small signs that you're in the present. The weight of your body, the temperature of the air, the sound of words arriving and leaving. You don't have to focus on these. The fact that they're noticeable at all, the fact that they're noticeable at all, means you're already here. And each time you realize you're here, you can quietly give yourself credit for that, even if it only lasts a few seconds. At times, memories feel like they pull you backwards. And yet right now, they can be placed at a respectful distance. You might imagine setting those memories down like books on a shelf. They're not gone. They're just not being read at this moment. And as you notice them resting there, you may become aware of the part of you that is not inside the memory. That observing part has always been here. Some people notice that when they're not inside the memory, their awareness feels wider, not floating, not leaving, just less compressed. And as that happens, you might wonder whether this wider awareness feels steadier or quieter or simply less heavy. There's no correct answer. Your experience is the right one. And as you continue listening, certain phrases may register more clearly than others. That's your attention organizing itself. You don't need to guide it. And each time your attention settles on a word or pause, that's another moment of being present. Even drifting is okay. Noticing the drift means you're here again. Noticing the drift means you're here again. You may find that you don't need to figure it. You may find that you don't need to figure anything out right now. Understanding can wait. Explaining can wait. And as you allow that, you might notice that listening becomes simpler than remembering. The feeling of simplicity can make this moment feel more manageable. Why don't you allow yourself to experiment with this moment as it is, not to change it, not to improve it, just to see what it's like to let this moment be enough for now. And after you try that, you can always return to the past if you need it. Perfect. While you're here, you may notice a small sense of steadiness as you recognize being present. That recognition may repeat itself. When you notice a pause, your body may soften on its own. You don't need to remember anything until remembering is useful. The more you allow yourself to simply listen, the easier listening can become. And when you realize you're here again, that may happen more often than you expect. And now, without effort, you can continue listening as I share a story. You don't need to place yourself inside it. You can simply let it pass through awareness. And the fact that you're here, listening now, already tells us something important. Already tells us something important. We can begin. I want to explain something in a way that's not about blaming you, because none of this is your fault. When someone has depression, it's not just they're thinking about the past too much. It's that their brain and body gets stuck in stress mode. And once that happens, the mind naturally keeps looping backwards. When you're under constant stress, emotional, mental, or physical, your brain goes into survival mode. That's when you feel exhausted, irritable, anxious, heavy, or numb. That version of you isn't your true self. It's your nervous system trying to protect you. Stress actually changes how the brain works. Over time, it can block chemicals that normally help with mood and flexibility. That's why depression can feel so sticky. Not because you're weak, but because your brain is literally having a harder time adapting. Here's something really important. Memory is not a video of the past. Every time you remember something, every time, every time you remember something, your brain rebuilds it using how you feel right now, what you believe about yourself, what your body is sensing. So if you're depressed, the brain tends to replay the past through a darker filter, even if that's not the full truth of what happened. That doesn't mean your memories are fake. It means they're shaped by your current emotional state. Depression makes the brain focus on mistakes, losses, what went wrong. Not because those things matter more, but because the brain is trying clumsily to prevent future pain. The same brain systems that remember the past are also used to imagine the future. So when the past feels painful and fixed, the future can feel empty or scary. That's not a personal failure. That's how the brain works under long-term stress. A huge part of mood comes from below the neck, the gut, the heart, the nervous system. Most of the signals going to your brain come from your body, not the other way around. That's why depression can feel physical, heavy chest, tight stomach, fatigue. So telling someone with depression just to think differently is like telling someone with a broken leg just to walk it off. Forgetting details, replaying things differently, or feeling unsure about the past isn't a flaw. It's a side effect of a brain that's trying to make sense of the world while under pressure. Your brain isn't broken. It's overworked. And here's the key thing I want you to know. If memory is flexible, then your relationship to the past is flexible too. Because memory is something the brain recreates. not something set in stone. It means your story about yourself can change. Your brain can relearn safety. Your future doesn't have to be trapped by old versions of the past. Healing isn't about erasing memories. It's about changing how your brain holds them with less fear, less self-blame, and more compassion. Your depression makes sense. Your brain has learned this pattern under stress, and brains can learn new patterns. And as the story settles in its own way, while you continue listening, you can allow whatever no longer needs holding to loosen. When something completes itself, please allow movement to happen quietly or subtly, or not at all. You won't need to decide what is shifting. Until you notice that deciding isn't required. And as release occurs, it may occur more gently than you'd expect. While experiences remain available, you can notice that intensity does not need to stay connected. As you feel space where pressure once was, you can recognize that sensations can exist without you, can exist without pulling you into them. The feeling of neutrality will allow experience to rest differently. And when that happens, your body may respond first or later or in its own way. As you reflect or don't, you may notice that experiences can be observed from different distances. The closer you get to viewing something from further away, the more you can notice structure instead of impact. And as perspective shifts, meaning may reorganize itself without effort. While attention rearranges itself, you can allow certain elements to soften. When unnecessary pieces fade, please allow what remains to become simpler. You won't need to keep everything. For your experience to stay whole. And as simplification occurs, clarity may occur more than you'd expect. And as you notice what feels steadier, you can allow that quality to become more noticeable. The feeling of stability will allow it to occupy more space than older patterns did. And as that representation grows, other versions may naturally shrink. You don't have to choose which one remains. And when you imagine time moving forward, days, weeks, or months, you may notice yourself responding differently in familiar situations as you sense that future version. You recognize that another option exists there. The feeling of having options will allow flexibility to develop. And when that future moment arrives, this may feel surprisingly familiar. Later, when thoughts begin to repeat, you can notice whether a steadier orientation arrives first. As soon as you recognize that shift, your body will know what to do. You won't need to recreate this experience, for it will be available. And when you need it may arrive more easily than expected. And now, while you remain exactly where you are, you can allow awareness to return to the room in its own time. And it's worth noticing that being able to do this comes from real effort you've made over time. When you notice sounds, please allow them to be ordinary, and you might gently recognize how much you've already learned about staying with yourself. As movement returns, you can feel how your body responds with a quiet familiarity, the kind that comes from practice, from trying again and again, even when it wasn't easy. You don't need to rush. The care you take with yourself now reflects the work you've done to understand, to grow, and to keep going, even during difficult moments. When you're ready, you can simply continue with your day, bringing with you the strength you've built, the insight you've earned, and the steadiness you've developed through persistence and courage. You may not always notice it, but it's there because you put it there. You are perfect just as you are.